Lisa Copeland, and I want to invite you to my show, The Big Sell. Are you ready to stop being a small player in a big world? Are you ready to decommoditize your business? Are you ready to stand aside from the competition? Join me every week on The Big Sell. Hi, everybody. It's Lisa Copeland, and welcome to the Art of the Big Sell, where I bring on the best and the brightest in the universe. People that have known success beyond anything imaginable. But these are people not only that are successful, but they have the one big idea. Like, they have mastered the big idea, and nothing about them plays small. So I'm very honored today to be able to have Rebecca Contreras on, who is just an absolute rock star. And you wait until I read her bio to you. But she's also one of my best friends in the entire world. In fact, Renee Bangelsdorf and I wrote about her in our book, Crushing Mediocrity, because her story will inspire you today. That, you know, what she's going to share with us is that it doesn't matter where you start in life, it's where you finish. And if you finish strong and you build a strong legacy, and I don't know anybody who has done it better than Rebecca Contreras. Hi, Rebecca, welcome.
Hi, Lisa, how are you?
All right, well, I'm going to have to read this bio because it's just it's so impressive. So bear with me. Rebecca Contreras is currently the president and CEO of Avant-Garde, an SBA 8A WOSB certified and Texas Hub certified consulting firm she founded in May of 2011. Avant-Garde provides services in 4 core areas: people, process, strategy, and technology. Gosh, Beck, I think I need you. Contreras has dedicated her entire career to the people business, serving in executive roles, driving large-scale organizational change. Starting AG in 2011, she has grown the AG team to more than 70 team members and over $10 million in annual revenue. More than 70% of the growth has been due to client referrals. This is so cool. In 2017, the Austin Business Journal recognized her as one of the top 5 women for profiles in power. And so you and I are sisters in that award. I was one of the top 5 back in 2012. Cool. Yeah, and it's very prestigious because there's a lot of really amazing women. And in your case, there was 84 that you were chosen out of. And then she was selected, Avant-Garde was also awarded the 2017 Minority Federal Contractor of the Year, and I can't wait to get into that story. Let's see, during MedWeek, through the Department of Commerce and UTSA in San Antonio in 2015, Governor Greg Abbott and SBA honored her as the Latina Entrepreneurial Excellence Award. This is where I think the story is super cool. So prior to your consulting career, you spent 15 years in government, and you started working for then the state treasurer, Ann Richards. Boy, I wish I would have known her.
Loved Ann, loved her, great gal.
Loved her. Ultimately worked for various offices, managing their state offices, specializing in management and HR, including my favorite U.S. Senator, former Kay Bailey Hutchison, and then Governor George W. Bush. She ran Governor Bush's state HR prior to his election as governor. And when the governor was elected to president in 2011, Rebecca was asked to join the White House team in a role of special assistant to the president for presidential personnel, and served 2 years overseeing and managing the president's appointment process with over 1,200 positions. After she finished her White House post, then she was appointed to serve as the Deputy Assistant Secretary and Chief Human Capital for the U.S. Treasury, an agency of over 120,000 employees. Rebecca's also served on the board of West Point Military Academy, and she currently serves as the chair governance for the American Bible Society, a global, large-scale nonprofit serving funding for global philanthropy projects in more than 70 countries. And I had the honor, Renee and I both did, to go with you a couple of years ago to Philadelphia. What an amazing organization the American Bible Society is. And Rebecca now lives in Austin, Texas, with her husband of 27 years, who I adore also, David Contreras, her 2 wonderful children, Caleb and Crystal, and recently became a grandmother to baby Bella. So if you become Facebook's friends with Rebecca, you are going to get to know that amazing little girl. And Rebecca and her husband also have a nonprofit here in Austin called Launchpad, where she serves as a volunteer from time to time. And Rebecca's passion centers around 3 key areas of focus: empowering women and serving inner city communities, which is what she and her husband did so faithfully with Launchpad, the inner city schools here in Austin, Texas. So anyways, there's just so much to say about Rebecca, and I could just keep reading and reading, but I happen to know her personally, and that bio does not do her justice. And when Renee and I were writing the book, Crushing Mediocrity, we immediately knew, we were looking for people to feature, that Rebecca was one of the first people that came to mind for us. So Rebecca, I want to take you back. I want to take you back to the beginning. And I want you to tell everybody out there how you start, like what I want to hear about and what they need to hear about is the story we talked about in our book, how you started out in the Welfare to Work program.
So I think, thank you, Lisa. I'm thrilled to be here with you. Obviously, I think the world of you and think you're like a big rock star. And so you've been a great friend and coach and mentor to me and just confidant. And so thanks. I'm honored to be here with you. So I think one of the things that I'd like to share with people is, you know, where you start is not always where you finish. And your start does not determine your finish. And in my life, I did grow up in a very poor community. I'm one of 4 children. All of us had different fathers, and our mother had a lot of struggles with drugs and alcohol and abuse and depression and all the things that come with that. And at a very young age, became a teenage mom, got on welfare myself, and really was headed down a path of really no purpose. And very early on into my daughter's life, at about 8 months old, I had a sort of an epiphany determination that I had to change the course of my life for her sake and for our sake. And went and enrolled in a Welfare to Work program that was actually sponsored by Ann Richards at the time. She was actually running for governor that year. And she had a program where, you know, she allowed single moms to come in and get off of welfare, and it was part of the Yeah, and so my first job after I officially got off of that welfare system was working for Ann as her receptionist of all things, and in her front office, and really got to see women in very powerful positions, women of power, women of influence, and really began to kind of to think about, wow, this is possible for me. I had met my husband, and we got married and started our journey together and started my faith walk and understanding who God created me to be, that I did have purpose and that I wasn't a statistic, didn't have to be a statistic, and really began to discover who I was and get love and acceptance and mentoring and all of that, along with the great training and education that was afforded me. I began kind of to climb the ladder in state government, and of course worked for Kay Bailey next, and then George W., and the rest is history. But I think that the main thing that I love to tell young women and women in general is, you know, everybody faces hiccups along the way and life journeys that sometimes really knock you down and just want to suck the life out of you. But you don't have to stay there. You can, through mentoring, through purpose, through in my personal journey, through prayer and support, you can change the course of your purpose in your life. And it's hard work. It's not always easy, but you know, with the right elements, you can be successful.
So I want to take you back for a minute, back to Ann Richards. She was definitely a woman ahead of her time. I mean, what year was that you worked with her?
So I first met Ann in 1989. She was the treasurer of the state agency, and she was running for governor, if you recall, against Clayton Williams.
Yes.
And Ann was feisty. She was a fireball. She had a mouth on her, as most described her, but she had a tremendous commitment to women and to see women be successful. And I will tell you, I was in a lowly position for her at that time. I was her receptionist, but she always made it a point to stop by the desk and say hello and check in on me. And I remember one imprint that she left on me was she was running for, or she was doing a campaign ad, and she asked me to be in it. And I was at a table at a restaurant with her, and she was talking about, you know, life and what makes things different and what I want to do with my life, and talking about my welfare story. And I remember her listening intently and really caring about my journey and my story. And even though I only worked for her for that short 8-9 months that she ran, and then she left to become governor, and Kay Bailey came in, and really my big transformation was under Kay. Ann was like a catalyst for me, and she let me see the potential of what a woman could look like in the workplace. And growing up in an environment where women were barefoot, pregnant, and you know, all dropouts, I had not seen a woman in power before. So it was a really enlightening moment for me.
And yeah, that's really interesting. You brought up that point. We're going to have Melinda Garvey, both of our very dear friend, on the podcast in the next couple of days. And, you know, she has started this movement with On the Dot Woman, bringing relatable role models to women to listen to every day for 4 minutes. And it sounds to me like, you know, that's what you needed at that point in time, because you were able to see two amazing women. I personally know, of course, I know the Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison. I was her campaign chair for Williamson County. And what a great lady she is.
Yes.
But you had two relatable role models. Do you think the trajectory of your career or your life would have changed if you would not have had two women like Governor Richards and Senator Hutchison to be able to aspire to? I mean, do you think the outcome could have been different or would have been different?
Yeah, no, that was definitely a huge part of my dreaming. There's another woman that worked for Kay that was really my boss, Donna Reynolds. I reported to Donna under Kay's leadership. Obviously, Donna reported directly to her. She was the director of HR. Donna's the reason I got into the HR business. But, you know, I believe that early on, God knew that I needed to see women in a different kind of role to change my trajectory, change my thinking. I think everything in terms of changing your course of your life, it begins in your brain, then it's got to get in your heart before it's translated into action. And my thinking was not right. I had not seen women in power. So I think meeting Ann and Kay and Donna early on in my career really was a catalyst for me in terms of looking at myself different as a woman.
But how brave were you? I mean, you had dropped out of school, you had gotten your GED, you were a single mom, you had not seen success in your life, or it had never been modeled for you. But at that young age, you knew that you were meant to do something big, that you were meant to not be where you started. And that is so, I mean, to me, that is the message that every young woman and young man needs to hear. You know, not everybody starts from a place of success. And you and I both know, Beck, that we have seen people that have started from a place of success and they don't do anything with it. They squander it. Yeah. And that's why your story is so amazing. So now I want to walk you a little bit farther through your story. And I want to talk about when Governor George W. Bush came to office and what that looked like. And then from there, I want to go to the White House, because what I want to give everybody is what your background is, because now I totally want to talk about what you're doing nowadays, but I want them to understand how amazing you are and that there's nothing in life that will hold you back except for fear and fear.
Yes.
You were fearless. I mean, I know you had nights you stayed awake. How am I going to feed all of that? But you just pressed through. You didn't let anybody stop you.
Yeah.
It's just such an amazing story.
So I think that the women in my life were a catalyst, but then there was a second piece. I had not viewed men in a healthy role model way for me. In my life, men were abusers. They took advantage. You know, there was no value there because they didn't value me as a person. And so when I first met my second mentor, a gentleman by the name of Clay Johnson, who was the president's best friend, Clay went to school with W, both at Andover High School and Yale, and you know they became really good friends. And of course, he led the administration in the first term for him. When I first started working for Clay Johnson in the governor's office and met Governor Bush, wow, here were two phenomenal men that actually saw my potential, that saw that I was smart and had energy, and that began to really help give me a different vision in terms of my career. It was really, Donna Reynolds played a huge role in my life. And then when I started working for Clay Johnson, Clay gave me exposure to the governor, and I started interacting more with the governor, and of course learned that he was, you know, going to run for president. And when I got the question, I remember it was in the chief of staff's office, in the office of the governor. By that time, I had risen up to be the director of HR. And Clay said to me, you know, I was talking to the governor today about you, and he asked me if he gets elected, would Rebecca go to Washington? I about fell over in my chair, Lisa. I said to him, little old me? Literally, he knows who I am. And I remember because he looked at me and said, oh, Rebecca, he knows who you are. But that encouragement and that, you know, having someone believe in you and having
like the governor of the great state of Texas who's running for president. I mean, we're not talking just anybody.
Yeah. Well, but you know, for me, it was bigger than life. I had already arrived working for the governor. I didn't need anything else. But to hear that Clay Johnson and Governor Bush had a potential to have me serve under a potential elect presidency, I was blown away by that. I was just lucky to be where I was. I didn't really think of achieving anything above that. But, you know, one of the things that I have been really blessed in is I've had really strong men around my life. My husband was the first rock of my life that came alongside me at age 19. And of course, we got married at 21, and then God began to bring other healthy men that saw my potential and that gave me opportunities. So both men and women that inspired and encouraged me, and then they let me run because I'm a doer. And
you're a thoroughbred, sister. They've got people that let you run.
I needed direction in the beginning, but after, get the hell out of my way and let me run. And they allowed me to do that. So I'm really grateful to both Governor Bush, President Bush, and Clay Johnson for that.
Well, and I'll just, side story, you had invited me a couple years ago to go to the reunion for the Bush-Cheney White House, which I was so excited. I'm a huge fan of President Bush and Mrs. Bush, of course. And we were in a line where all the former employees of the Bush White House were there. And I saw George W. Bush jump over about 3 people to get to you and give you a hug. So I can absolutely testify that that man adores you. And then, of course, when I was the chair for Go Red, we had Mrs. Bush as our keynote speaker, and she just fell all over you when she saw you and David at the luncheon as you sat on the committee on the American Heart Association. And so it's obvious you had a very special relationship, and that, and you think about the thousands and thousands of people that worked for the president, but I saw him firsthand jump over about 3 people and say, Rebecca Contreras, and just, hug your neck.
Well, and the Bushes played, they may not know the level of impact they made, but they made a huge impact because they believed in me and they gave me an opportunity to serve alongside the president for almost 12 years, 6 years as governor, 6 years as president. And I'm just forever grateful for that. Those are opportunities, Lisa, that I don't take for granted. When you grow up, a high school dropout, strung out in poverty, and all of a sudden you're in the Oval Office with the leader of the free world.
I just get chills. Listen,
You don't take that for granted.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about it. We're going to get a little deeper here. So Governor Bush becomes the new president of the United States, and you go to Washington, D.C. with him. And there was almost a roadblock that stopped you.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that that you have to do when you work for a president is you have to go through a very comprehensive clearance process. And, I had a shady past, Lisa, and those that know me laugh, but it's true. I have quite a few skeletons in my closet from my teenage I call them the wayward rebellion years. So I had to go through a top secret level clearance because I was a commissioned officer in the White House and had access to the president in the Oval Office every week. And so, we all had to go through clearance. And so I was a little worried that my little skeletons in the past would come back and haunt me. And what they do is the Secret Service will literally talk to everybody and everybody that's known you and knock on doors from your neighbors and your childhood friends. And
wow.
And I think that there were some, there's people in your past that can serve as roadblocks, and they don't necessarily, they're not crazy about your success because they're kind of still in the same place, so they want to kind of bring you down with them. Well, the Secret Service got a hold of some of those negative people and who exaggerated my background a bit. And we had to work through that. But I was so grateful that throughout my entire journey, even though I've made mistakes, God protected me. And, I was able to be shielded from that. And it could have cost me my career, but thankful to men that believe in me and knew who I was. When those stories started to come about, they determined, well, they're just stories, and this is not the same person that is here today. And of course, I didn't have a criminal background or any of that, so all of it was good. But it was a little scary when they start digging in your past. And so the story there for people watching is everybody has a past. Gosh, every American has dealt with issues, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I didn't hide from my past. I said, this is my past. This is who I am. And, you know what, I made mistakes, but I'm better for it. I have moved forward in my past. And so really taking those things with a grain of salt and not focusing on your past, because it can be debilitating for you. It could have been, but thankful again that the Secret Service cleared me, and my mentor stood for my credibility in terms of reputation. And I'm grateful for those people that believed in me.
And, I love what you said about that. I'm just sitting here thinking, us as leaders, there are so many people that need a second chance, right?
Yes.
And it's so easy to discard people once they make a mistake. And you're living proof that, the President of the United States did not discard you, because you were worthy, and you were not in control of how you grew up. That's just how you grew up. There were circumstances way out of your control. But just the fact that you overcame, it's just, like I said, every time I hear the story, I'm so proud of you, and I'm so proud to know you. And something that, when I first met you, God, 12 years ago maybe, I brought you in to speak at an event in Williamson County. And what I was so blown away with then, and I still am today, and the fact that is that your total transparency, that you're willing, because so many people would try to shove this whole backstory under the table, because all of you heard me read her bio. It's like, oh my God, like we're dealing with somebody who was in the White House and, all of that. And they would never share that backstory. They wouldn't share how they got there. And you've always been so transparent about it. How come?
Well, so God brought me out of a mess very early on in my journey. And one of the things I always learned is everybody has issues. And if I don't become transparent and share how I overcame mistakes and plagued with issues and challenges and how I grew up and even just abuse, then how are people going to learn and have hopes for their own life? My story, Lisa, has always been a public story. I made a decision. My husband and I both made decisions early on in our life. We were going to be a testimony and a positive story for people. And even if it meant airing our dirty laundry, we were going to do that with wisdom. But I believe that your past can dictate your future. But if you become open about your past and learn from it and have people learn from it, it becomes a learning process. And so I've always felt that I need to be transparent with people because it helps. I can't tell you how many hundreds and thousands of women across the country have said to me, Rebecca, I'm so glad that I relate to you. Like, you're not this ivory tower person. Like, I've made issues. I've had abuse. I've, experimented with drugs. I've had alcohol problems, or, I grew up in an abused home. And so people learn from that. And that's just how I know to live. There's no other way to live but transparently.
Yeah. And which, again, is so amazing. So now we're going to kind of talk about what you're doing now. And I want to get some inside scoop. So you are my Washington, D.C. insider. So, because of course you're in DC at least 2 weeks a month and sometimes more, running your large consulting firm. So you do such a great job running between Austin and Washington, DC. I want to talk about the temperature in Washington, DC right now. Again, we watch the news and who knows what's true and what isn't. But you're there, you're an insider. You know the players in Washington, DC. Tell us, what in the world is going on? Is it as divisive as it looks?
Well, and I had this conversation with a colleague of mine who's an executive working in the Trump administration for a secretary, and we've both been around, presidency and of course in state and local government, and so I've been around on the government side of political, not necessarily on campaigns, but on the government side, organizationally for a long time, since 1989, 1990, and I have to honestly say that this is probably the most divisive time I've ever seen in our country in terms of the political divide. And unfortunately, it does create problems for people to see progress. And having served under a president and having been in the White House when 9/11 hit and having watched him make such difficult decisions under a very trying time in our country, I don't fault any president for how they govern, because unless you sit in that seat, you really don't know what the president faces.
Right.
So I think people can be really critical of the president, whoever that is, whether it's this president or Obama or Bush or whoever.
Right.
But until you sit in that seat, you really, really don't know the pressures they face. However, I will say I have a friend of mine who recently got elected to Congress, and he and I served together in the White House, and so we've had exchanges here and there. And joked about how is it now that you're in Congress. And things are very difficult because, there's such a divide even congressionally. A lot of people don't know this. The president doesn't have a lot of power. He has a bully pulpit. So in order for things to get done in DC, Congress has to work together.
Yeah.
And they have to work with the president because the president cannot enact legislation. The president cannot pass all these laws. And so things are just really torn right now, and it's unfortunate. And in my tenure of having seen it, I think it's really, we're at a point where I think serious decisions need to be made about progress, and I'm really hopeful that the House and the Senate and the White House and the Congress, everybody will come together for the sake of our country. But, Lisa, I try not to get discouraged because at the end of the day, this too shall pass. People come and go, and the Americans know if they don't like who's in office, then vote them out come next midterms and next election. But it is disheartening to me, having been engaged on the inside, now being on the outside as a consultant. It's disheartening that there's so much divisiveness going on because it's just so unnecessary.
For example, so tonight, I believe, is the State of the Union.
Tonight, yes.
And so this podcast will air at another time, but tonight is the State of the Union. And what are your thoughts about people in Congress, in the Senate, boycotting the president? I mean, I just think it's tacky. I don't care. And it doesn't matter who the president is. It's like, I expect you to show up if you're in Congress or you're in the Senate and sit there and listen, because he is the president of the United States. Whether you voted for him or not, that doesn't matter. He is our president.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that boycotts, obviously, it's an American society where we can state our opinion and we have the right to boycott and to protest. And I think all of that can be very healthy as an American. But honestly, if you're in Congress and you were elected by the people to be in Congress, then get your butt in Congress and sit there and be a part of the State of the Union. I mean, to me, what does that accomplish? I think, having seen, and I've worked for both Democrats and Republicans, so I'm not a Republican. I am, I'm a person that votes for the individual. And I've had bosses on both sides of the aisle. And all I can say is, do your job. That's what the American people elected you to do. And if if you disagree with the president, then you can disagree respectfully, but boycotting a State of the Union accomplishes nothing. And it's only a pity party. It's like, show up, be respectful. If you recall, Lisa, during Bush's State of the Union addresses, and even during Obama's, both parties were present. And, there were times where the Democrats would stay seated and the Republicans would clap.
Right.
That's okay. But to just say, I'm not going to show up, that's childish in my mind.
Yeah, I'm just saying that he's not our president. Well, yes, he is our president.
He is the president. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, good point. So let me ask you something, and I want to kind of go down a road of bullies. With all this stuff that's going on now, Time's Up and Me Too and all of that. And so set aside the sexual harassment piece, but let's talk about bullies, in the workplace and what's happening, and how women are rising up against that. And that being said, do you feel like potentially, that this president could be seen as a bully, with the tweets and things like that? Like, at what point what makes him different than maybe Obama was from a standpoint, or President Bush was? Do you think it's this whole Twitter thing? Do you think that social media has just gone mad and the presidents should not have that kind of unusual access to Twitter?
Well, I think that we have seen this is not a conventional president, right? He's completely unconventional in every sense. I worked for W for the 12 years and, when he was governor and president, and he's just a very different personality. W is very confident in who he is. He very much felt that, he didn't need to defend himself constantly. His record would speak for himself. And even there at the end, when he was, his record was affected, he said, history will judge me. And he's right. And look at now, he's one of the most popular presidents
ever. I know. I remember seeing him on Oprah a year or two after, he was no longer president. And I thought, what a statesman, He is a statesman. As he sat there and he said, you know what, I wasn't going to get into these media wars. I wasn't going to defend what I did because I believed at the time, with the information I was given, that I made the best choice for the American people. And so I just think that there is, and I'm sure President Obama had his fine moments too, but that one really stands out for me with President Bush. And I think that if people would, take that lesson, business people, and become more of a statesman and not feel like you have to defend yourself on social media or not feel like you've got to, start a all-out war. So I want to kind of transition now into, as we start wrapping up, it's like, so tell us about Avant-Garde. Tell us what you do on a daily basis. Who are your clients and how do you serve them?
So I started Avant-Garde in May 2011, and this year we just crossed over $11 million in revenue. Wow. So we've had just tremendous growth. And Lisa, 90% of our growth has been client referral based. So our clients refer us and recommend us, and that's really the way to grow as a company. So my client base is all government facing. I have a few private sector clients, but for the most part, government facing. So state and local government, federal government. We have about 80 people on our team, spread across Washington, Maryland, Virginia, New York, and Kansas City, and then here in Texas. And so I'm really excited. Our team is what makes us. We have a stellar team, and without my team, I would not be an effective CEO. I believe that every company owner is only as good as the team that surrounds them. And so we have a great business model. We've replicated it this year. I'm on the scale to grow another 3 to 4 million this year. So I'm hoping that by this time next year, we'll be a little over 15 million. And we're really excited because our capabilities are about people, are about process, are about organizational strategy and transformation. So we come in and help organizations identify inefficiencies, help them identify, various customer service hiccups or issues, and then make improvements, not only to their workforce, but to their organizational structure, to their process. And then we have a technology piece as well that we enable technology through a tool that we developed and actually is under patent that combines workforce and organizational planning in a web-based type tool that's proprietary. So we're excited. We're talking about with the current administration and with some of the new agency leaders that are now in place about supporting in government reform, because I know the one of the big initiatives is to reform government, and we believe we have a model for that. And so we'll see how that goes. But life is good. It's very stressful, and going back and forth now almost 12 years is taxing. But I do what I do because I love my people and I love my clients, and God is good.
So let me ask you this: what was the big idea? This whole podcast is about the big sell, the big idea. And talking to people like yourselves who started here, but somewhere along the line, they got the big idea. It was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is the path I'm going to take. When did you make the decision that you would start Avant-Garde? And you were just, you were a government worker, let's just call it. And you transitioned from that. Because I don't know many government workers that even know how to talk about trying to get off welfare. Forget that. I say get off the government payroll when you're a government worker. Like, that just never seems to happen. That's why we've got congressmen and senators that are 104 years old with oxygen masks. So that being said, you went from that, let's see, you started with welfare, a GED, then you went to the governor's office, then you went to the White House, then you became a government worker, and now you're this entrepreneur extraordinaire. What was the shift? What was the mind shift? What was the big idea that got you off the government's payroll and actually had you develop your own payroll for 80 employees?
So Lisa, I wanted my freedom. My husband and I absolutely have a passion about our community. We believe that we were taken out of the community to come and impact the community. I saw that I can't do that as a W-2 clock in, clock out government worker. In order to make a difference, you have to have wealth, you have to have income, and you have to expand in order to affect the community. You do it by empowering people, you give them jobs, you produce what I call generational wealth for your family. We have an interest in giving in large proportions. You can't give money that you don't have. I would like to be, frankly, at a place where I'm giving half of my income away, if not more. And we're on a trajectory to get there. But I really kind of had a shift. David and I, early on in 2010, began to really kind of reevaluate our kind of day-to-day life. And although we'd had great success in our careers, we really wanted to do something with what God gave us and all the success we'd had. And we felt that investing in the community and making it a point to start a business to actually produce wealth and growth financially for us so that we could then give back. And so that was really the catalyst for us. It continues to be the catalyst. We want to invest in our community in a big way. And I'd like to be the one writing those big checks instead of asking for them. So I'm really excited about the potential that Avant-Garde provides in order to do what I always tell people: Avant-Garde is what I do to make a living, and a community philanthropy is what I do to make a difference.
And you guys have made such a difference, especially in the inner cities in Austin with Launchpad. Talk to us a little bit about the American Bible Society and the new Bible Museum. And you were such a big part of raising the money, sitting on the board. It was breathtaking when you brought Renee and I to Philadelphia to go to the event. And so give us the progress on that. I think it just opened.
So we just did, so David and I were a part of the grand opening with Mark Green, the Hobby Lobby family, and his brother Steve, and of course the ABS leadership team. And wow, you guys have to go and visit. The Bible Museum is one of the best in class museums out there. I would put it up there above like a Smithsonian level in technology. It's just
chills again.
It's phenomenal, and it's worth a view. It's a historical museum, so it also covers every aspect of the Bible, but also Christian history and biblical history. With all that comes with that. And so I'm actually coming off the board. This is my 9th year, so I'll be rolling off in June, and it's been a tremendous honor and opportunity to help be a part of that leadership, and I look forward to continuing to support the American Bible Society. David and I just invested in a pretty significant Middle Eastern project for a community there in the Middle East. A lot of the Christians in the Middle East are being persecuted by ISIS and being killed, and we met a widow who her husband was beheaded by ISIS because he was just a Christian. Really no other reason than that. And so our hearts were tethered to that. So we invested a sizable gift into help trauma healing for the Christians in the Middle East that are going through trauma. And so, we don't have any interest in laying down what we're doing. We absolutely believe that we just this morning in our daily devotional and talked about how this is going to be a great year for us in terms of our expansion and whatever it is that we're to do next. So it's always advancing and growing and continuing to do what God has called us to do.
Well, our time is wrapping up, but I have to ask you, you've had this incredible life, an incredible career, and you haven't even hit a major milestone yet.
Yeah.
Tell us what the next 5 years look like. What is the end game? I mean, I know all your philanthropy and all the work you've done, but what is Rebecca's personal end game? Take us 5 years out.
So I'll be 50 a year from this month. I just turned 49, and I would like to, in the next 5 years, frankly, I would like to perhaps, put down what I'm doing in terms of the consultancy firm and empower someone else to do that. But I would like to spend my time investing and mentoring women, empowering women, inner city communities, and really showing them the potential of what's possible with big dreams and hard work. And lots of planning and execution. And so I'd love to write a book. I'd love to coach, maybe be a coach. I'd love to do what you're doing, Lisa, following your trail. But, I always tell people, you can't do anything without financial independence. So my goal right now is to become financially independent so that we can then spend our time doing what we really, really want to do in this next decade of our life,
which is changing the world. And so anyways, Rebecca, what a treat it has been to have you on here and to tell your story. Tell anybody who might be watching this, how can they get a hold of you?
So obviously, feel free to visit our website at www.avantgarde, AVANTGARDE, 4USA.com. There's a link on there where you can reach the CEO or just, look me up on Facebook. I don't think I'm at the threshold of my friends amount yet. Look me up on Facebook, and I do wish everybody just a prosperous 2018. And Lisa, I'm excited about what's going on in your life, and I can't wait to see what happens with you. And thank you always for being such a cheerleader and such a good friend.
Well, you're welcome, and we will have links on the podcast on how you can get a hold of Rebecca, and you can check out her amazing company. I know if there's potentially sometimes you're available to speak, not always, but that might be a possibility for anybody out there. And so anyways, so I just want to thank everybody for listening to The Art of the Big Sell, where we bring people and big ideas together, because without big ideas, there's never going to be any forward movement. And, talk about a relatable role model. That's Rebecca Contreras. If she can do it, you can do it. So I'm signing off. Rebecca, again, thank you so much. Continued success. Continue to change the world, because that's what you do every single day with your beautiful family. And give David my best, and Crystal and Caleb and Bella. And until next time, everybody,
All
we
right.
are the Big Cell. We're signing off.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa.